Welcome back. On the occasion of the EU-Egypt Year of Science, the Embassy of the Federal Republic of Germany in Cairo, the British Embassy in Cairo, and the Ministry of State for Environmental Affairs held recently a conference on Cairo climate change. The conference was held at Al-Sawi Cultural Wheel, and the attendees discussed the vulnerability of Egypt to climate change. And joining us this morning to shed more light on this event is Dr. Martin Bergfelder, the head of the Science Department at the Embassy of Germany. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me. I really look forward to discuss this important topic. And we are very satisfied with the results of the conference. We had a lot of attendance and a lot of media coverage also, and we're building up, I think, on this issue and getting a lot of interest on climate change and environment in Egypt, also from the younger generation, which gives me great hope that we can foster and even deepen our cooperation on this subject.
Okay, let's start our discussion with you to gather this report on the event and be back to start our discussion with Dr. Martin Bergfelder.
First tonight to give this
Cairo Climate Talks held its fifth panel discussion discussing the climate change and how vulnerable is Egypt. The Embassy of the Federal Republic of Germany in Cairo and the Ministry of State for Environmental Affairs hosted this special event on the occasion of the EU-Egypt Year of Science and Innovation at the Sawi Culture Wheel in special cooperation with the British Embassy in Cairo.
And a lot of really good studies that would be great to look at in conjunction.
The idea for the whole Cairo Climate Talks came out of the embassy. We are making the concept, so for every month we're choosing a different topic, of course in discussion with our partners, but basically the concept comes from our side, the suggestion for guests also whom to invite. It's always a dialogue with the Egyptian side, of course, and not to forget there's also some money from the German embassy involved, so it's funded also by the German embassy.
The event offered a scientific approach to the global problem of climate change, discussed recent findings of the IPCC and the recently published British study, the climate observations, projections and impacts on Egypt.
So today, we were here partly to launch a study that we've been doing in the Met Office, Hadley Centre, along with a lot of other countries. So really I wanted to talk especially about the impacts of climate change, the observations that we've done of how climate's changed in the past in Egypt and what the projections are for the future. So I was looking particularly at those results for Egypt for the report that we recently published.
Climate changes like the widespread warming trends over Egypt since 1960, with greater warming in summer than winter. Egypt is projected to experience mainly decreases in precipitation in common with the wider Mediterranean and majority of the Middle East. The Cairo Climate Talks is not just about a bunch of scientists sitting together to discuss climate change. It's more of a wake-up call for the governments of the world, including Egypt, to find effective solutions for the global warming signs. Ahmed Nader for Nile International.
Welcome back. We're still with our guest in the studio. Live with us here, Dr. Martin Bergfelder, head of the Science Department, Embassy of Germany. And we were talking about the idea of this conference. How did it spark to you, especially this year when there is a big proof of the influence of the global warming and the change of climate is very much clarified this year with the drastic change in weather?
Well, the climate change is becoming more and more a topic of foreign policy also. It is, the Foreign Office in Germany is very much engaged in this and is also topics of our international cooperation in terms of development cooperation, especially with Egypt. And so on the global level, it is a big issue in politics. It's high on the agenda still. But also with Egypt especially, we are doing for a long time, since 20, 30 years, cooperation in the field of renewables, water management. So the idea is a little bit, or was a little bit, to provide a platform to get this to the wider public, basically, to raise awareness in the interested public on the issue, to tackle specific issues related to climate change, environment, biodiversity, and you are right, we can already see impacts of climate change happening. Some years it's a little bit colder than the year before, then people think, oh, there is no climate change, but if you look at the long-term trend, you can clearly see overall on the globe that we are experiencing already climate change. It's already going on, and it's accelerating at a pace that scientists are astonished, even those who from the IPCC, the conservative reports of the IPCC were already exceeding what they have predicted. So yes, we can feel it already, and it is becoming a problem. Is already a problem on the global scale that we need to manage. We need to tackle. End up in a situation where we cannot manage climate change anymore. But we also have already to prepare to manage the unavoidable. Some of the climate change is already so much accelerated that even if we stop with all, we will not be able to stop it fully. So time is running out, clock is ticking, and on a global level we need a global effort to work together on this issue, because it's affecting everybody, and the climate doesn't care where the emissions come from, whether they are from Egypt, from the US, from China. For the world, it doesn't matter. So it's a global problem. We all need to work on this.
Okay. Dr. Martin Bergfelder, one of the Cairo climate talks are a series of events that started last November, launched by the German embassy here in Cairo. And as we heard you from the interview, you talked about the idea or concept behind this event, and you said every month you choose another topic or another issue related to climate change to talk about. What are the issues and discussions that were held so far on this very important issue to the world?
Well, we started in November with the preparations for the big international conference in Durban. Once a year, all countries come together under the umbrella of the UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, where they try to broker a global deal, an international agreement. So before Durban, we met here to exchange our views and also try to approach our positions between Germany and Egypt in the international arena. So that was pre-Durban conference, if you want. Then we had one conference about the results of Durban, stock taking, and what are the consequences on the international level. What concrete steps we can do in our bilateral cooperation. Taking into account the results of Durban. Then we had one event on carbon markets, on market-based mechanisms, how to encourage investments in climate-friendly technologies. Of aviation, inclusion of aviation in the EU system of emissions trading. That's a very technical issue. We also tackled adaptation in the agriculture in Egypt, which is a very big issue. Egypt's agriculture is very much vulnerable to climate change. This time we worked on new scientific approaches and new scientific results from the IPCC, but also especially on Egypt, so on a very broad scientific approach. Next month we will be working on sustainable urban planning and development. Then we will tackle the Desert Tech project, which is about fostering solar power and renewable energies in Egypt. And we have many more ideas to come this year. I'm just mentioning energy efficiency in the tourism sector, biodiversity, mega city approaches. So what can cities, Tokyo, New York, how can they work together? And I can go on and on. More and more people are contacting me with new ideas, and there's a lot of interest from Germany also, because we are always bringing at least one expert from Germany and bring him together with one expert from the Egyptian side. So a lot of ministries and universities and think tanks in Germany are contacting me now and say we want to come to Egypt and then work with our Egyptian partners, because Germans are very interested in Egypt, and Egypt is a key player also in this field.
Economy is directly affected by climatic changes in any country. So how come you see through scientific approaches, which you mentioned and you focused on in your conferences, be able to try to help in that domain in countries like, in developing countries especially, like Egypt and other countries? How can you use that factor?
Well, first of all, I think at the end it's always politicians that have to decide and not scientists. The world is not governed by scientists, but politicians need to have a sound scientific basis on which to take their decisions. That's the role of scientists. So science needs to tell politics, what do we know, what are the likely developments, and then on this basis people need to make a decision. That's the one thing. And for Egypt especially, the study that we have seen, which was published by the UK, shows clearly that there are some big issues for Egypt in terms of sea level rise, water scarcity, extreme weather events, droughts, and so it is also for the Egyptian policymakers to have up-to-date scientific knowledge and in order to do some strategic planning, because climate change is a long-term issue, and the investment that you are doing now will stand for a long time. The infrastructure that you are building now will last for a lot of time, so you need to take into account also things that will maybe happen in 20, 30, 50 or 100 years. If you now build a new houses, for example, or if you build new agricultural land, you have to take into account what will happen in 50 years. If roads that you build now usually should last for more than just 5 or 10 years. So in order to take long-term investment decisions, you need to be informed by science. That's very important.
Okay. Dr. Martin Bergfelder, the events of the Cairo climate talks, discussions that have been held so far ever since November, are purely a German initiative or a German idea. But every now and again you involve other sites like the British Embassy this time in this month's event. Did you find, as you started the series of events in November, did you find an interest from the official side here in Egypt, the Ministry of Scientific Research, for the Ministry of Environmental Affairs, and now other foreign sides like the embassies, for example, as now you're involving the British Embassy in this month's event?
Okay, maybe first I need to clarify. It's really a partnership thing between Germany and Egypt. The Environmental Affairs Ministry and its agency, the EEA, Egyptian Environmental Affairs Agency, is a partner on the same level in this. So we also, from their side there come ideas, from our side there come ideas, we sit together and discuss what could be the interesting topic, and they help us to bring the other ministries, to bring experts from the Egyptian side. So it's a partnership between Germany and Egypt. It's not Germany coming to Egypt and preaching what to do. That's the first thing. We have getting more and more interest also from other ministries. Foreign Affairs is involved, Egyptian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then depending on the subject, Ministry of Agriculture, Transport, Energy, scientific research is coming. Has not been there yet, but sure they will come. And then we're also getting interest from other embassies. Like this time we had the British Embassy with us, and I'm getting also I'm being contacted by other embassies and institutions that want to work with us. So I think we have started something good, and of course we are open for others to join us.
Being an expert in that field and holding and choosing an issue for each month and studying and surveying how the world is changing, In the light of what's happening all around the world, the climatic changes and the environmental changes, what are the most dire environmental issues that do you think that it is forcing itself on the scene, that you see that there is a dire need that you have to study it?
I think we will never be able to exactly predict the climate in 20 years or 30 years. That we need to be sure. We will always deal with uncertainties. So you cannot, you cannot say, before I take any decision on this issue, I need to know exactly whether the sea level in Egypt will rise by 1 meter and 5 centimeters or 10 centimeters. There's always an uncertainty in this. So you need to prepare for a wider range. But still, there is more research needed to bring down these uncertainties and to get on exactly what will happen. So that is important in terms of research. The topics also that are coming forward now, besides climate change, one very important topic is energy, how to deal with the fact that fossil fuels are bad for the climate, and also the time of oil is running out. We have maybe gas for a bit more time. But we need to find a sustainable way of dealing with energy, and we have in this regard we are doing a lot of research, and the recommendations for Egypt, and we were already working in this field with Egypt.
Earthquakes, maybe?
Earthquakes, yes, the tsunami warning system already exists in Southeast Asia. That's something similar is also worked on in the climate field. So we need some research in energy, and we need research also to biodiversity. That's also a big issue, the loss of biodiversity. I think in Egypt you're well aware of this issue with for example, for the Red Sea, the coral reefs are something that's heavily affected, and there's a linkage between the loss of biodiversity and climate change. And for example, for new medicines, you need all these plants, and if they are disappearing, maybe there are solutions in nature to tackle diseases like cancer, and we will never find them because they're all dead. We will never know that they would have been there. So it's also an economic issue.
Okay. Also, another issue is which is very much related to climate change is food security. So has this also been one of the issues that you discussed during the series of events held as part of Cairo Climate Talks?
Yes. It's always, climate change is not always the single factor for everything. You need to be aware that it's always a bundle of factors that lead to food insecurity. But clearly, for Egypt, if you look at the Delta region, if the sea level will rise, you will have a problem in the Delta region with regard to food production. And if you have more hotter weather and the Nile will bring less water, then you have a problem with irrigation. So these are, I think, two of the main reasons that that it's evident that Egypt, and there is already some work going on in Egypt. It's not that the authorities are ignoring this, but there is more to do to prepare Egypt's agriculture in order to prevent food security. Because also you don't want to import all your food, right? The world market prices are high, and it's costing a lot of money. So
it's a worldwide crisis for the security.
It's very important.
Okay. Dr. Martin Bergfelder, Head of the Science Department, Embassy of Germany, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming, and best of luck. And now it's time for some light news by Tina Landour.